Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Culture Hour. My name is Shelley Smith, your host and founder of Premier Rapport, where everything about my life and passion and obsession is around workplace culture. Today, I am thrilled to welcome a guest, John Hawley. He is many things, but I will introduce him as a master facilitator and let him tell you more. Don't forget that at the end of each of these episodes, you can ask questions of our guests. And when we get lots of questions, I actually bring the guests back on. And you can listen to us on iTunes, on Stitcher, and of course, consume it via YouTube and more. So let's get started today. John, why don't you tell our listeners and our viewers who in the world you are?
Awesome. Shelley, well, I really appreciate you having me. And so way back in the day, joined the Navy from Virginia Tech. As a surface warfare officer, and later on went to nuclear power school, et cetera, until I realized I needed to do something else that I really had a lot of passion for. And so I wanted to go to work for Google. And in doing that, I went to all of these classes on my way out of the Navy, strategic thinking, critical thinking, group design, all sorts of these courses. And I realized that they all had something really awesome, but none of them really filled the whole day for me. They never lit my brain on fire to the point where I left and I was like, every single minute was used. I had a great time. I learned so much. And so fast forward to creating a course that did that for me. And I got asked, I've been extended 3 times now in the Navy to do that course. And since I did it on my own time on my way out, I also started my own company to do that for corporate America. And, the first couple times you realize, I can fix this, that, and the other. And, I've done thousands and thousands of people now to the point where I'm confident and comfortable in front of just about any audience for any purpose that they want to accomplish as an organization or as the boss and the leadership team. So that kind of sparked the facilitator in me, and I do, like you said, a whole bunch of other things. But my main passion and goal is to work with people and to get teams, high performance, high stress teams, rowing in the same direction because they want to, not because they have to.
Yeah, no, I love that. So there's a few things that intrigue me that are inside of your LinkedIn profile that added to our conversation. So one of the things is you talk about being an individual contributor and really maximizing your self-talent in order to give back to the team and create high-performing teams. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about your approach around that, or maybe the history behind that, or how you get at it,
Sure.
or all of the above?
So, I always put myself in the shoes of the people that are going through either my class or any other class. And I look around the room and I see the people that are crossing their arms and the ones that are on their phone. And you're like, if they actually gave it everything they had, it would make it better for the person to the left and the right of them, which would make it better for the entire group to actually get the most out of everybody that's in that setting. Mm-hmm. And so, you can do a course that's geared around some solution for some company. But if you don't have an impact on the individuals when they go home, not just in a work setting, in my opinion, you didn't do everything you could have done. Mm-hmm. And I'm a firm believer in focusing on the individuals so that, that dinner conversation that they go home at the end of the day and they say to their husband or their wife, "Oh, I had an amazing day today, and it was because of this, that, and the other, and I'm so excited, and let me teach you about it." Or, "Oh, today was absolutely terrible, and this is why, I just had the worst day ever." Yeah. And if you can get them to go home and have that great conversation, then they're going to come back to work probably happier, and more involved with what they've set out to do in the first place. So that professional development will come on its own if you focus on the individual, and you'll get more out of the group as a whole. So it's just this constant circle, this constant loop of feedback to make the course better, the outcomes better, and the individual better.
So how did you arrive at that place yourself What are some things that happened inside of your career that maybe you had, it was the pivotal moment, it was the aha moment that you're comfortable sharing with the audience?
Um, I think it probably goes back to my time in Japan. So I was on a destroyer in Japan, and I had a division of 13 people, and I didn't know anything about what I was doing whatsoever. And so
Mhm.
I'd go to them to ask for help, which normally is not the case. Normally, you go to your chief and you get that information, and they groom you to be the officer that you are, looking after your people. And I
Mhm.
kind of took a different approach, and I realized then that a couple of them would actually really help me. They would take the time out and say, "This is why you do this. This is how you do it. If you do this, it makes my life easier by doing that." And I'd run into a couple that weren't able to reciprocate that. They didn't do that whatsoever.
Mhm.
And I realized then, essentially, I know this isn't a very great example, but um, I realized then that if they all had done that and they all played their part in grooming me to help them,
Mhm.
then then it makes it better for even all the other people that are involved in that division, in the work center, the division, the
Yeah.
department, and the entire ship,
Yeah.
just from kind of reaching out and helping me. Because now I can take that leadership development trait and I can pass it on to my peers as,
Mhm.
hey, are you guys doing this with your folks? And
Mhm.
if not, why? And what's working for you, what's not?
Mhm.
And it honestly, it takes everybody to put their best foot forward to make that happen, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, I think I've been asked this a few different ways recently about vulnerability in leadership. And some of the things that you were just talking about gets right at that. And so the clients that have asked me that, as you know, I'm very transparent, and I flat said to them that to me, vulnerability and humility can go hand in hand, in the pace that when you say, I don't know and I need your help, that begins to form that relationship, that fundamental trust piece. And it's so difficult as us as human beings, regardless of where our mechanism of dominance and control is, to ask for help. And if you can't do that, then you believe that vulnerability is a weakness. And I actually believe, and would love to hear your aspect of this, is do you believe that it is appropriate to have an ounce of vulnerability in order to form, I guess, relationships, is how I would say. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, absolutely. And when you don't have that and you're looking or you're dealing with somebody, whether it's a business or a partner, somebody that doesn't have any pitfalls whatsoever, it
Yeah.
makes you think in the back of your brain, you're like, something's wrong here.
Yeah.
Their profile must be somewhat inaccurate. The people that they claim to know, something's off. But
Yeah.
if somebody comes out and just tells you right away, right off the bat, this is my first time ever doing this. I'm really good at this thing, but I need
Mhm.
help doing all these other things. Now
Yeah.
you're like, okay, this is a real human being. I
Yeah.
can picture them living across the street from me. I wouldn't mind if my daughter was outside playing and they went up to her, like that type of relationship. You go, I can trust that person with information that they could potentially use against me
Yeah.
or for me. And
Yeah.
so, to go into what I do as a facilitator, that is the core reason why I think it works. You start the day with vulnerability. You let everybody know I'm letting my guard down, and if I can let my guard down, then you can too. And
Right.
and only then are you really going to be safe and feel comfortable with sharing with one another.
And to receive the information.
Yes.
So not only giving it, but to actually receive it in and accept it and reflect on it. The other thing that I've never asked this question, and I don't know why, with all the different service folks that I know, you guys always talk about, and I love this, and I'm paraphrasing, but the left and the right. So, having that coverage of the left and the right, that you personally have that accountability, that I am in charge of the person to the left and the right of me, and I'm going to go on faith that they have my back too. What is it about? Because I only hear that. I've only heard that from service members. I have never heard anybody, and so now I've like taken it because I say that now in corporate speak all the time. And I love that. Where does that come from? How is that bred? Because I hear it from all branches of the service, not just one. So tell me about that.
So I don't have a great answer for that. Is that part of this vulnerability thing? I don't know.
I don't know. But you know, you can't be an individual contributor successfully if you don't have the backs of those people that are around you. And again, I just hear that seems to be a common military term that I've heard. You know, looking to your left, looking to your right, you know, and having their backs. And I'm like, yeah, corporate people don't talk like that. It's almost like it's perseverance, I don't know, that you're the scarcity. I don't know what it is that corporate people don't immediately go, let me have your back, because you're
also a lot of things that they do. And this is just from my experience and the different people that I've spoken with, is that, you know, it depends on where you work, right? If you work in an environment where your successes or failures are yours and yours alone, then maybe I don't need to look out for the guy or gal to the left or right of me, because they're going to outshine me with whatever they're doing. In the military, if I had to give this my best shot, my best answer would be, you can't actually accomplish the mission by yourself. It's impossible. Every single person brings something different to the table. And when you add all of those things together, we're greater than the sum of our parts.
Yeah.
And so, you know, if you discount the people that are feeding you, well, now you have no energy. You can't fight the fight. If you discount the people that are taking care of your health, you're not going to be ready physically and mentally to fight, et cetera, et cetera. And so, and to make the parallel into the class, this is like improv. You make your partner look good. If my job is to make you look good and your job is to make me look good, collectively we succeed as a team, because we're not trying to sabotage each other. We're not trying to get credit for who said what or what the outcome was. We take the credit for bringing everybody together for this great success, and not you or not me.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, to me, it's a common sense thing. And obviously to you, it's a common sense thing. To many or most, I would say that it's not. And, you know, I think in any environment, to your earlier point about thinking that you're in it alone, there isn't, even sole entrepreneurs are not in it alone. You have got to network with your partners, with your vendors, and be sources to one another. And I would think argue, and I believe you would too, so correct me if I'm wrong, argue until I'm blue in the face and out of breath, that none of us can do any of these things alone. It's that, and I don't know the exact quote, and you might, but it's that adage of, I can run fast alone or faster alone, but I can never move forward without the group together. And you said that with the sum of the all parts thing. And I think if one of the things that in your class, and as you do things, facilitate in the corporate side, is bringing that notion of the left and the right in every way you can, shape or form, I think would be a continued huge impact, because corporate America as a whole just don't use those terms. And I've just always found that very fascinating. So anyways.
So a great example of that outside of this is my LinkedIn journey. You and I talking, it is basically either being connected to somebody else or connecting somebody else, and how I can benefit you and how you can benefit me. I've talked to a lot of people where, you know, I've said, hey, you know, I'd really like to talk to you. I saw something that you have that's very unique on your LinkedIn profile. And I might not even be asking for me. I might know a friend that I really, it's so much easier for me to do it and then say, hey buddy, I made this fantastic connection. They're perfect for you. And now when I make that connection, I propel my friend, and et cetera. So I've had people come back and go, well, what are we going to talk about? And, you know, in the beginning I was like, well, we'll talk about all these different things. And, you know, I'd love to share what I know. And now that I've been moving on and I talk to a lot of people on LinkedIn constantly, I ask the same question. What are we going to talk about? When somebody reaches out and say, what do you want to talk about? I'm like, I mean, you tell me, you're the one that reached out to me.
Yeah.
But anyways, back to the point is, I would say 9 out of 10 people that I speak with, I'm either able to connect them to somebody else,
Yeah.
or benefit them, or they benefit me in some way. And I've noticed that when I benefit somebody else and don't get anything in return, they almost always come back and they say, hey, I met this new person that I think would be great for your network.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's because as human beings, really, that the BNIs, the givers gain. I mean, it's the givers gain. It's human nature that if somebody does something for you, you absolutely want to reciprocate back.
Definitely.
So unless you're, an evil person. But
Yep.
yeah, I definitely think that is. On LinkedIn, it's interesting you brought that up, that so many people don't know how to maneuver through that and how to start conversations. And unfortunately, they start conversations in writing, doing a sales pitch. And that makes me insane, to digress. Don't do that to me. I can't stand that. I'm
Yep.
never going to do business with somebody I don't even know you.
Yep.
So anyways, the appropriate connections. So let's get back to the classes that you facilitate. Can you talk to the viewers a little bit, maybe about some commonality, some tricks, some things that they can be a value add for them, that when they get off, when they're listening, they're like, that's interesting. I think I'm going to try that, or that's a good tip, or what's a tidbit you can give us?
So I guess there's the difference between, maybe I'll start with an event. My biggest advice for having an event is, everybody wants to fill the space back to back to back because they want it to be this jam-packed, incredible experience. But in my experience, every event that I've ever been to, the best part of the event was meeting the people during the breaks.
Yes.
You meet somebody and you're like, oh, this is fantastic. We share the same, X, Y, or Z. But if it's speaker after speaker after speaker, followed by a break, and then, you lose me.
Yeah.
And my thought is, I can't possibly be the only one that feels that way. And so my advice to group setting would be, create white space on purpose and make the purpose of that white space, call it out, meet somebody new, share some of your ideas, figure out how you can communicate and collaborate outside of this venue, so that whatever happens here transcends this event. So you don't just go, yeah, I just listened to 6 people speak today. What'd you learn? Oh, there's some stuff here and there.
And my notepad is full of notes, and I'm excited now, but when I get back, the day's going to take over and I'm never going to pull that up again. You're absolutely right.
Yes.
It's a great tip. I've learned that the hard way, putting on events, is that you're so excited about, you said, packing the house and to have great speakers. But the reality is, it needs, number one, it needs to sink in what the speaker said. But you're right. We go out in groups in order to meet and connect. If we didn't want to, everything would be done online via webinar 100% of the time.
Absolutely.
And the reality is, we want that interaction and that dialogue. And who can sit for 8 hours during it? I can't do it. I don't even care if I have fidgets and snacks and my computer in front of me. So no, that's great advice. What are some of your favorite? I'm sorry?
I said, you need to get the blood flowing. You need to be able to, and the more times that you have those little spots, the more people that you meet. And it might not work out between me and you or me and them, but you're going to do it so many times that you will make a connection in there that's meaningful for the company, for yourself, etc.
Yep. What is one of the favorite things that you like to train on when you're facilitating? Is there like a specific topic, or maybe an exercise or a group think? What is it?
So one of my favorite things is kind of teaching people out of groupthink.
Okay.
Because if you're in this groupthink, one of 2 things is going to happen. You have somebody that's incredibly shy, that's not going to tell you what's on their mind. Yeah. And they could be the most brilliant person there, but if you don't ask them outright, or they don't feel safe, they're definitely not going to tell you what's on their mind.
Yeah.
So that's one. You could lose a big chunk of people that way. And then the other one is, you have these, I'm a type A personality. I have a strong personality.
No.
No way. And so if I'm not conscious of the fact that what I do in whatever scenario is having potentially a negative effect on everybody else, then I've gone too far, type of thing. So what I teach is essentially to prevent the type A's from taking over and allow kind of make a middle ground and set the standard and the bar that we're all equals here. Mm-hmm. Ideas don't have any kind of seniority. They don't have a gender. It's the idea matters. That's it.
Yeah.
And, I relate it to poker. It's, throwing in a $20 bill in the middle of a table and losing it is somewhat crushing, but throwing in, an idea that actually grows to be something else, whether it's a Post-it note or something else, grows to a better idea, grows to this team-wide shift to, this fantastic thing that you want to be part of.
Yeah.
Wow, I threw my idea in there. Nobody accepted it, but I'm still part of this great thing. Right. Who cares about the poker chip that you throw in the middle of the table? I don't know if that was a very good example, but it's just, it means more when you have that buy-in. Yes. You just want to be part of it,
and you allow for it. So most of the listeners know that I use predictive index as a behavioral assessment and cognitive tool. And it comes to the very point of what you're saying is, depending on where your behavioral mechanism is of heads up, heads down, dominant, extroversion, task oriented, you're going to share your ideas in different ways. And it's definitely important for the facilitator to be able to read the body language. Or if you happen to work for an organization that has these behavior tools, you look at your audience ahead of time to know the best way to engage them. So you're right. So you don't shut them down. So many times we think that when people aren't talking, that they're disengaged, or that you've lost them in some way. And the reality is their behavior just might be one of observing, and their inner perspective, and they're thinking through it. And your best thing to do is to go to them privately on break during the white space, or to go to them afterwards and say, wow, I think you look like you were really thinking about something. I would love to hear your thoughts. And the soft way to shut down people that are highly dominant like you and I, to get other people to be able to talk. So I could keep going with you, but I'm gonna, even though it's called the Culture Hour, I never go that long.
Yep.
Because of people's attention to our very point. So what are some final comments, tips? It can be a tip, it can be a book, it could be a quote, and then let the audience know verbally how they can get a hold of you. So if they're listening to this, they know how to best reach you. And then if they're watching it on YouTube, they'll see the tag at the bottom.
Okay, so if I can do this in any kind of order. So it would be 2 books. Okay. One goes off of what we already talked about, which is The Go-Giver. Super quick read, and I really like that one a lot. The other book would be Entrepreneurial You. Also a very, very good book.
Yeah.
And if I had any tip for anybody, it would basically just be that, how we deal with our employees, how we deal with our partnerships, etc. This goes back to what we talked about at the very beginning with being vulnerable. It's it doesn't have to be a zero-sum game. We can all win when we're collaborating in the right way. It doesn't mean that you need to reach out to everybody and be a part of everything they're doing, but there are partnerships out there that mutually benefit both sides. And finally, I would say anybody that wants to get in touch with me or ask any questions or anything, I can be reached on LinkedIn. That's probably the best way to reach me. And then from there, we can kind of go from there.
All right. Very good. Well, John, we really appreciate you being on today. You are a wealth of inspiration and information. So we definitely appreciate you. And viewers, please, viewers and listeners, please make sure that you comment below, share your ideas, thoughts, and questions, and we can get John or myself to answer them back, or who knows, maybe John and I will do another taping. So until then, my name is Shelley Smith. I'm your host and the founder of Premier Rapport, where everything about workplace culture and culture itself matters. If you're interested in getting a culture inquiry inside of your company, please do not hesitate in reaching out to me at shelley@premierrapport.com, or go to the website premierrapport.com. The same goes if you want to become a professional certified culture curator. You can find the information on the website. And finally, if you would like to be a part of the Culture Curators in Conversation and to hear more about that, you can check that out on the website as well. So, John, thank you again. Listeners, thank you again. And until the next time, Culture Matters.